Hello folks, thanks for tuning in on today's video. We're going to walk through a kind of talk through of how to effectively employ the Sparrow and point out some things that you may not necessarily know about how to use this effectively to deliver one shot, one kill hits. So right here I'm showing you the warm-up switch there, showing the 3 Sparrows that we're carrying and how they're warmed up. Right there is the interlock switch. You will want that to be set to off for reasons I will explain further later on. As always, we'll turn off the roll SAS since we might be doing some maneuvering here, and we'll get ready for our longer range Sparrow engagement. So I'll tell Jester here to set the radar to 25 nautical miles wide, and while we're cruising on forward, I'll talk through what the Sparrow was engineered to do, and why so many folks had trouble with employing it effectively. So this system is a 1960s era engagement setup, okay? Now, this was all designed and built well before the modern era of microprocessors and accessible computer technology. So the designers of the F-4 and the F-4E's radar and the APQ-120 system, all these folks had to work within a relatively restricted period and capability for computer memory and systems. So they could not program this system to dynamically know, okay, it's locked onto a bomber at 3G's medium altitude versus locked onto a MiG at 5,000 feet in a 6G turn. It just wasn't smart enough to know the difference. So given the priority of using these F-4s as interceptors against nuclear-armed Tu-95 bears in the Cold War, the designers and engineers of the F-4 and the APQ-120 engagement system prioritized presenting the display for a bomber intercept only. And that's all they had the memory and capability to put into the system at the time. So when you look at the symbology and you see the steering error and the lock-on cues and all of that, that is all based on the system assuming that you are targeting a bomber. So as you see here, while we make our left turn and call AWACS for directions to the bandit, these cues are not accurate for engaging a fighter-sized target, which is what we'll be shooting at today and was usually how the Sparrow was employed. This fact means that if you launch the missile based off of what you see on the screen against a fighter-sized target, you are probably going to miss. And this isn't necessarily an issue with the crew, this is just a matter of training. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of U.S. Air Force crews and U.S. Navy crews had problems employing the Sparrow in Vietnam. This was an issue that was, of course, rectified later on when, with more computer memory and more dynamic computer capability, you could program a heads-up display to show you the accurate cue to shoot in all the various missile metrics we all know on fourth-generation aircraft, because those systems are smart enough to know the general size of the aircraft that it is locked onto, so you can trust what it tells you. In the case of the F-4, we kind of have to do a little bit of mental assumptions and missile Kentucky windage to get the hit. So now, as Jester locks the bandit, I'm now going to turn the aircraft to get us lined up here. That green dot at the top is the steering cue. That green circle is the allowable steering error, and that's the area we want to keep that big green dot in. We're going to keep the green dot in the top center of the circle, and the reason is if the bandit deviates to the left or the right going down, we want to maintain the lock. If we kept the dot precisely in the middle and the bandit defended, we would lose the lock and the pass would be trashed. So as we line up for the pass, we see the bandit cue coming down. Now they're able to shoot, but we're not going to pull the trigger yet. We're going to wait for the bandit to come into that no escape range, which it now does. Now the bandits come down the no escape range, I pulled the trigger. We want to make sure the missile gets there before we hit that break X or minimum range cue. Even though I lose the lock at the last moment, it doesn't matter because the bandit is gone. So a lot of stuff happened there. So to recap the events, I waited for the lock to be completed. I also waited for the 4-second timeline to be completed. That 4-second timeline is to allow the telemetry and the queuing data to be downloaded to the missile, because remember, 1960s technology here. After that 4-second countdown queue is complete, we can then pull the trigger. But remember, the shoot queue and all those lights are under the assumption that I've locked onto a Tupolev bomber in a 3G turn tops. We're not doing that today, so we have to ignore those cues and prosecute the shot in the understanding that I'm engaging an F-86, not a bomber. This distinction is one of the reasons why the fighter weapons school people like Chuck de Bellevue and Steve Ritchie were able to kill so many MiGs with this system when a lot of their Air Force and Navy peers had trouble with the Sparrow. So to finish out that explanation, after waiting for the bandit to enter that bar, which is the no escape line, that means once I pull the trigger, all things equal, meaning the missile doesn't go dud or doesn't fail, that missile is going to hit the bandit. So I waited until that bandit queue was within that no escape range bar. Then I waited a little bit longer just to make sure that we were within range, given the F4 speed and the kinematic capability of the AIM-7. I pulled the trigger, and the rest you saw. So it is possible to get a one-shot, one-kill hit with the AIM-7, but you do have to do a little bit of mental planning and shooting, if you will. You have to do a little bit of mental interpretation before you pull the trigger. And on that note, coming back to the interlocks button, or switch, I should say, you want that to be off, because the interlocks force the system to only allow you to pull the trigger if you are locked on within the parameters of what the APQ is programmed to accept. As we all know, the APQ-120 is programmed to engage a Tupolev or similar bomber. If you're not shooting at one of those types of targets, then you need to turn that off, because you're engaging a fighter and you will not be relying on the system cues to know when to pull the trigger. So with all that explained, if you've hung on to the end here, I thank you for your patience and thank you for watching. Stay tuned for future uploads to the channel. For those of you who are fans of my model content, I will be posting reviews of those as well. It's just that those, as always, take time to produce. So just keep an eye out for those uploads, which will happen in the middle of the month. And we will catch you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.